Continuing with the 8th chapter of Many Waters by Madeleine L'engle. Denny's had picked half a basket full of onions before he began to recount for Sandy, in detail this time, his experience in Tikla's tent. But it was her father and brother who threw you out, wasn't it? She was there, but it wasn't really her fault. She didn't even try to stop them, Denny said. And even if it wasn't her fault, I wouldn't trust anybody who came from that tent. Well, Sandy picked up his basket of onions and hefted it onto one shoulder. I can't say I blame you for feeling the way you do. He did not add that nevertheless Tigla was still the most absolutely gorgeous girl he had ever seen, except Yalith, who wasn't gorgeous at all. Whatever Yalith had, it was better than gorgeousness. And were Yalith and Mala and Tigla going to be drowned? Denny's, picking up at least part of Sandy's thoughts, said, Still, I wouldn't want Tigla to be drowned, and I guess she's going to be. Sandy felt a chill move over his skin, despite the sun, which was rising higher and hotter. And Yalith? Denny's picked up his basket. Oholibama is Japheth's wife. Ham, Shev, and Japheth, and their wives go on the ark. That's the story. Oholibama loves Yalith. I mean, they're really friends. I don't think Oholibama would let Yalith drown. If she doesn't have any say about who goes on the ark, can she prevent it? Denny said, Hey, we're talking as if that old ark story is true, but Noah doesn't seem to have any inkling of it, and he talks with this El of theirs. God, Sandy shifted his basket of onions from one shoulder to the other. Isn't there some kind of flood story in all cultures? I think so, Denny's replied. I mean, even in our day, the planet is still shifting its plates and causing earthquakes. We've had an awful lot of weird weather, volcanoes erupting all over the place, and tornadoes and hurricanes. Well, about those flood stories, Sandy continued, there must have been some kind of major weather cataclysm. Yeah. There have been wild weather patterns all through history, ice ages, whatever it was that finished off the dinosaurs, a comet, or that Nemesis star, or the Earth shifting slightly on its axis and altering climate and seasons. So a big flood isn't all that possible. Sandy said in a flat voice, Maybe we'll get drowned too. Maybe it would be better than being nuked. More inevitable than nuking. Nothing that hasn't happened yet has to happen. Denny's pushed into the tent and wearily set his basket of onions down near Grandfather Lamech's cooking stones. Sandy followed suit. They looked over to where the old man lay napping on his pile of skins, eyes closed, breathing shallowly. Higayon was curled at his feet, and little bubbling sounds came rhythmically from his trunk. Sandy said thoughtfully, If we get nuked, it will be because of people, power and greed and corruption. It wouldn't be a natural disaster, but a flood is a natural disaster. Denny's nodded. Nuking would be something completely different, not natural. Yeah, but remember, Dad says it doesn't have to happen. People can restrain themselves. We've had the power for half a century, and we've refrained. But if the plates of the Earth slide, that can't be stopped. If a comet should hit us, we couldn't stop it. And storms and blizzards, those are inevitable. When we had the hurricane and the big oak ripped out by the roots, nobody could have stopped that. It is different. Things that can be stopped and things that can't, like tornadoes and earthquakes and floods, Sandy said flatly. Grandfather Lamech startled them with a loud snore. It doesn't do any good to talk about it, Denny said, any of it. If there's going to be a flood, we can't do anything about it, but we can work in Grandfather Lamech's garden. The old man snored again. Right, we'd better nap too, Sandy suggested. Denny's dropped onto the clean sleeping skins which had been provided for him. Hey, it's good to be back with you again. But he missed Yalith's gentle fingers against his burned skin. Every day, someone from Noah's tent hole came to Grandfather Lamech's tent with the main meal. When Yalith and Oholibama came, they often stayed to eat with the old man and the twins. Yalith was equally gracious with each of them. But sometimes she sat looking at them in bemusement, letting Oholibama do the work. The twins, in their turn, looked at Yalith and did not look at each other. Occasionally, one of the men brought the meal, Japheth like his wife, and Yalith would stay to talk. Shem, who was the hunter, was cordial but not chatty. He would stand, leaning on a spear, until he was certain that Grandfather Lamech had everything he needed. Then he would leave. Japheth told the twins that when Shem went hunting, he would always stop to thank the animal he had killed, thank it for giving them the food necessary for life. "Do all the hunters give thanks?" Sandy asked. "Not anymore. I think they used to a long time ago. But now most of the hunters just kill, and often more than they need. Some kill just for the sake of killing," Denny said. "This is true in our time, too. At home, our land is posted against hunters and trappers, but that doesn't stop the jacklighters." "The what?" Japheth asked. Denny's tried to explain. "Hunters who shine a bright light into the eyes of the deer. It blinds them and they freeze and can't move, then the hunters shoot. Jacklighting is illegal, but that doesn't stop a lot of people." "A lot?" Japheth asked. Denny stated, "A few can seem like a lot." Sandy nodded. The twins liked what Japheth had told them about Shem. One morning, Anna and Elisheva came with the food for the day. Anna, Ham's wife, was obviously Tigla's sister, but her hair did not have the brilliance of Tigla's, and her eyes were not as rich a green. She was becoming flabby, with dimples all over. In her cheeks, her chin, her elbows, her knees, she was softer than Tigla. Elisheva was like Shem, solid, muscled, kind. At home, in the twins' part of the world, she would have looked comfortable in a flowered house dress, and she would scrub the kitchen floor every day and shift all the furniture to sweep under it. There was something more familiar about Elisheva than many of the other women, who had an oriental strangeness. Anna and Tigla's eyes were almost almond-shaped, their cheekbones high. After the pot had been set on the stones, Anna put her hands on her rounded hips, looking in open admiration at Sandy and Denny's. "Another 100 years and you'll be the most handsome men in the desert." Denny's looked at Grandfather Lamech's wrinkled face and trembling hands, thinking that the old man, at any rate, was not going to live for another 100 years. And even if the flood held off, he and Sandy did not have the lifespan of these tiny desert people, but he said nothing. He did not like Anna. Anna was Tigla's sister. Elisheva picked up the empty pot from the day before, which the twins had scoured clean with sand. "I wonder if they'll grow wings," she tended to speak of Sandy and Denny's as though they could not hear. "I think they're a new breed," Anna said. "Not Seraph or Nevel, but a completely different kind of giant." Her gaze slid from one twin to the other, then back to Elisheva. "What," she suggested, "would you think of having 2 husbands?" Elisheva laughed. "One is all I can manage." "Thank you for the dinner." Sandy turned away from Anna's gaze, which was uncomfortably reminiscent of Tigla's. "It smells good. And please thank Madrid for us." Anna put her fingers lightly against Sandy's wrist. "You're welcome to come eat in Noah's tent any time. You know that." Sandy was glad when she was gone. The big tent was dark and quiet. Madrid poked her elbow against Noah's ribs. "What about Mala?" "Huh?" Noah mumbled sleepily. "Husband, it cannot have escaped your notice that Mala is with child." Noah rolled over. "I have been very busy." "Noah!" "It is time Mala brought her young man to our tent," Noah said. "We will prepare a feast." "It is not a young man," Matred said. "At least it is not one of our young men, and I don't think they're young. I think they are old, far older than any of us. Even Grandfather Methuselah." "Woman! What or who are you talking about?" "Mala," Matred said impatiently, "and her Nevel." Noah sat up. "What are you trying to tell me?" "I am telling you," Matred kept her voice low, "that Mala is with child by a Nevel, and that she has had some kind of Nevel wedding." Quickly she put her hand over Noah's mouth to stifle his roar of outrage. "This is not how things are done." He pushed her hand away, but kept his voice under control. "There has been no wedding feast. No Nevel has come to our tent. The Nephilim do not do things the way we do. Their customs are not our customs." "This is Mala's will. She loves the Nephil. So it would seem she sends messages by Yalith. She does not want to tell of these things herself." Noah growled. It is the way of things to lose a daughter to another man's tent, but not without the proper formalities. When Mala does speak to me, Matred's voice was heavy, she keeps reminding me that times have changed. Noah sighed. It is not what we would have chosen for our daughter, but after all, Oholibama. Matred leaned against her husband, and he put his arm around her. I would rather have it one of our young giants. At least they are truly young, and I think they are good. They fit in with us, Noah agreed, and the Nephilim do not. It seems now as though our twins have been with us always. The moons have slipped by, Matred said, 7 or 8 of them at least. They have worked wonders in my father's garden and groves. It is hard work, and yet they never complain. Perhaps Yalith, Matred started, then said, it is time we asked them to take another evening off and come to our tent. I wish Mala had not been lured by the Nephilim. They glitter, but I do not think they are loving. I will speak to Mala. Noah pulled Matred down and onto his sleeping skins. If she will speak with you, Matred said. The twins enjoyed their visits to the big tent. The noise and singing and laughter. Once, at the time of the full moon, Noah's married daughters were there with their husbands and children, and there was dancing and music and loud quarreling and reconciling. I wish Mala was here, Matred said. Less than a moon later, Anna and Elisheva, bringing a big pot of vegetable stew to Grandfather Lamech's tent, again invited the twins to the big tent. But you should feel free to come more often, Anna said. You don't have to wait for an invitation. Sandy felt her eyes inviting to be turned away. We don't like to leave Grandfather Lamech too often. Higgaion, lying stretched out by the embers, swished his stringy little tail, raised his head, and put it back down with a thump. Again Anna lavished her smile on Sandy. You are getting nearly as brown as one of us, and you have freckles all across your nose. The den, too, Elisha's smile was friendly. I never believed he'd make it. Matred thought he was going to die, but Oholibama is a healer. And Yalith was marvelous with him. Sandy felt a sharp twinge of jealousy. When Yalith came with the nightlight, or with the evening meal, she was careful, over-careful, he thought, to smile no more at one twin than at the other. All that was a long time ago. He was surprised by how cross his voice sounded. We've both been well for months now. For what? Oh, many moons. Moon and month did come from the same root after all. But the people of the oasis thought of time in moons and crops and the movement of the stars. Yalith will be looking for a husband one of these years, Anna's voice was suggestive. Elisheva was brusque. Yalith will make a good wife, but not yet. Anna's eyes strayed from twin to twin. She pursed her lips. Elisheva jiggled Anna's arm. We'd better be going back, or Matred will be after us. She doesn't scare me, Anna said. Who said anything about being scared? There's a lot of work to do, and she's getting too old to do it all herself. Too fat, Anna muttered. Who's talking? Still bickering, the two women left, taking the empty pot with them. The twins went out to the vegetable garden, putting on Matred's straw-woven hats. The sun was not yet high, and the shadows still long. We'll stay just a little while, Sandy said. They worked hard. The weeds, it seemed, grew up as fast as they could clear them. Weeding was a never-ending job. They did not mention Yalith. They had more than enough to do to keep them busy. Grandfather Lamech no longer came out to the garden with them, but spent most of the day in the tent, drowsing after the long afternoon sleep. He would sometimes accompany them to the well, where they drew water, filling large clay jars, one for use in the tent. The others were for the garden, which Higgaion helped them water, spraying with his trunk, which was almost as good as a hose.